All right, welcome back to Big Board. So, where are we at? We are at the end of the movement phase for the November 5th turn in the Forgotten Battles. It's an OCS title. Struggling as the Soviets to engage and contact the Germans as they retreat from this defensive line they had a little further east, back as they back up towards the Dnieper. Long story short is that these guys move a lot faster than these guys, so it's making it a little bit tricky to get engaged and disrupt stuff and slow things down, or disorganize things and slow things down. As you can see down here, the pullback has been so rapid that there's a good 3-4 hex gap, and I've really pivoted a lot of the second Belarus forces, kind of pulled some of those forces up from first Belarus into second, and really trying to drive in on, there's a intersection here that I wanted to secure for internal lines of supply, and then there's a little trail here and a crossing right here that looks attractive to me to try and get access to, or obtain access to, that then would allow us to potentially get around Mogilev. Things aren't moving as fast as I want. Now I can flip all these guys over, it reduces their combat strength. I don't feel like, as the German access player, that I am going to counterattack heavily, particularly with these units, because once I start losing steps, if I do lose steps, if things go sideways, that really makes building comprehensive defensive lines difficult, because you're starting to have to really thin things out. I'm still not coming to grips with the fantastic level of resupply for both sides in terms of replacements. It's a little mind-boggling. It's great, but I'm still very, very cautious about losing units on both sides, and I just need to let that go. I think normally what happens in an OCS game, for me anyway, is I tend to push the situation too quickly, and I rush in, and bad things happen, and then I kind of foobar the game, and I lose interest. This has kind of gone the other way, where I'm being relatively cautious as the Soviets on the offensive, trying to get things right. And then Mud kind of messed things up for several turns, and that's when we did that simulcast turn. And now that we're either dry or freeze, there will be no Mud per se for quite a while. I think we can start getting a little bit better cadence going on in second Belarus and in the Western Front, which is just here, which I think we can just move the camera. You can get out of the glare and see that situation here. There's the boundary is right there. This is supposed to be up here, but just for clarity, it's there. And same with this guy back here. So we're looking to get offensive at some point. We're now on the second turn, and not a shot has been fired yet. Second turn of the offensive for these two fronts, but it's okay, because we have how many do we have? We've got 7 more turns in the offensive, and I've now got everybody else ready to rock and roll to go on to the offensive once these guys transition out, right? So we would then set up first Belarus in the south, or first Baltic in the north, to try and structure some sort of offensive after we see what we can do here. This is looking quite tough. We've got 2 or 3 layers of units and some dedicated formations in this spot here. If I was able to move faster up in this section, I think we could have pivoted in here and tried to drive home, but it's swamp and heavy forest, difficult terrain to fight in, and particularly for tanks. Can't get the artillery up close enough. So that's kind of what the deal is. Now, the thing that I am going to do after we stop here is that I'm going to run through doing air barrages in this area here and try and DG some units that I'm in contact with in various spots, and that'll allow me, if at the beginning of the next turn on the 8th of November, if all goes well and the Soviets pick up the initiative, they will have already disrupted or disorganized their potential targets, or some of their potential targets, and then I can disrupt further units in that air barrage phase as it comes up, and potentially have this artillery in place that I can use the artillery barrage feature that comes in the game. It's more like a frontal barrage, where basically everything that's adjacent to itself, to other units that are the barraging artillery units, they can all fire basically. So maybe I'll do a little video on that, because it's a pretty interesting little mechanic, and I get it. It's like a big offensive opening barrage thing, even though it's going to be the third turn. I don't think you have to do it in the first turn of the front activation. You just use it when it's appropriate. That would make sense to me. Well, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we're grinding away, man. I keep backing up as the Germans, because I don't want to have to fight. I don't want to have to lose units, and I don't want to have to counterattack. I want to retain my strength until we can fall back a little bit on Minsk, and there's lots of swamp terrain back here and difficult areas, and I think I can channel the Soviet attack a little bit more, potentially. And if I retain my strength, I think then that has a lot of benefit. Now, what I will be giving up is victory points, so I've got to be careful there, because we've got Boborusk here, and obviously Mogilev, Vitebsk, and with the other guy, Gomel down here. I think he's a VP location as well. So we've got to be careful about how much we give up and when we give it up. But if we're playing for either the draw or the minor victory, or just limiting the success of the Soviets, it would seem to make sense to want to husband our forces and look for the opportunity to channel the attacker, number one, and then number two, have enough force available that I can make savage counterattacks if and when appropriate. So that's kind of the German game plan, roughly, as I ponder this big old piece of stuff. And for the Soviets, I just got to get more smash mouthy. I gotta get after it. I've got to chip away at things. It doesn't matter if I lose steps. I can buy new ones. I can receive replacements, and we've got constant reinforcements coming in. So all along this line, I think hopefully we will see that we will be making a lot of what I would call, suboptimal attacks right through this whole front. And we'll see what happens. We'll obviously make some optimal attacks as well. Don't get me wrong here. But we will then see if we can break something and get some of these reserve units, which have not moved. They've moved their quarter of their points, movement points, but they haven't moved yet. We're going to push these guys up a little bit closer somewhere. It's kind of crowded. And then we'll go for it in the next turn if I get initiative. If I don't get initiative, it's a whole new ball of wax, and we'll have to reassess depending on what happens in the 8th of November turn. All right, that's a long ramble. Talk to you soon. Ciao. Roll dice.